This is Erased: The Destruction of Boston's West End by Charles Proels, Owen, and Ethan Young. The image of Boston's West End has undergone significant changes throughout the past several decades. These changes have influenced the vibrant community and thriving, business-oriented city that you see today. Today, the West End is home to nearly 7,000 residents, with over 70% of them being U.S.-born citizens. But these images are much different from those that one would see pre-renewal. Before renewal, Boston's West End was a compact city district, home to tens of thousands of people from all different walks of life. The majority of these citizens originated from different regions throughout Europe. These immigrants, for the most part, fell into the lower economic classes of society because of their immigrant status. The Boston Housing Authority declared the West End to be 25% immigrants, 63 of the West End units substandard quality, a quarter of the population was immigrants, with 37 families were non-white ethnicity. The future destruction of the area would be highly influenced by these population numbers, as, during the time of urban renewal, those who were immigrants or non-white were seen as lesser and contributing to the blighted classification. This image shows the total removal of life that came with urban renewal in the Boston West End. Now, let's explore what led up to the program that emptied these streets and pushed out their immigrant population.
The Housing Act of 1937, also referred to as the Wagner-Steagall Act, was extremely important in providing a structure for change of slum clearance in Boston's West End. In addition to the Wagner-Steagall Act, the Federal Urban Renewal Program of 1949 was created. This allowed the city to use federal funding to initiate proper clearance of buildings and residential homes in order to put the imagined redevelopment of the West End into action. Ed Logue, a Yale graduate who studied law, changed the course of his professional career to change the declining cities in America and reshape them into housing suitable for all people. One quote is, "Perhaps more important than any physical space he built was the kind of committed, experimental spirit that Logue brought to his work, a belief that as a society, we have responsibilities to provide decent housing for all Americans, to make our cities work for all people." Ed Logue's contributions towards city planning spanned through the nation and even reached into the district of the West End, where he focused on the revival and reshaping of the area. It is ideas and influence like his that led to areas like the West End being redeveloped. The West End Project reported his official document that laid out the plans for renewal of the West End. Its initial creation was developed by the Boston Housing Authority and published in 1953. It turned talks of urban renewal into a very real situation for the area's residents. This report designated the area as blighted, describing it as a slum in need of destruction and renewal. The report's extensive dive into the area's population, the state of the buildings, and the crowding provided justification for the demolition to come. In the years before eviction, brave groups of the West End residents, such as the Committee to Save the West End, protested at public hearings hoping to have their voices heard. These protesters were described as irate, implying that their efforts were definitely heard and maybe even scared city officials for a time. Unfortunately, these efforts were not enough to overturn the city's plans for redevelopment. Eviction letters were mailed to the residents of the West End on April 25, 1958. Later that year, the Boston Redevelopment Authority, BRA, began demolition. This store, built in 1799, was one of many tragic losses out of all in the West End. It held lots of cultural significance and history in the initial uprising of Boston's West End, and marks just one of the many historical buildings destroyed in this process. The aerial view of West End, after it had been entirely eradicated from existence, helps to put in perspective just how widespread this project was, and the shadow it left behind on the district that once existed and housed so many.
After demolition, something clearly had to replace the barren landscape left in the wake of the many buildings destroyed. For the West End, that was the Charles River Park apartment buildings, designed by architect Victor Gruen with the intention to change the living demographic of the West End altogether. In 1956, 2 years before residents would receive eviction letters, the Boston Housing Authority awarded Charles River Park Incorporated the rights to develop the Boston West End after it was sufficiently demolished. In 1959, presumably during the process of demolition, the Charles River Park blueprints were officially finished for a, quote, $55 million, 45-acre redevelopment for 2,400 apartments split into 5 neighborhoods, developed one at a time over multiple years. This neighborhood complex was geared towards middle working-class individuals with families and demanded a rent much higher than the average in the West End before demolition, furthering the struggle for displaced residents to make a return. In November of 1961, the first tenants moved into the newly constructed Charles River Park, marking the beginning of a new era of living and housing in the new West End. It is important to note that, while there has obviously been new construction in the West End in the years following its demolition, the Charles River Park was the only true official renewal project planned immediately following. This leads one to think about the pros and cons of the redevelopment process as a whole. Despite the success of city planners in clearing the West End and constructing their new Charles River Park, there were still people who spoke out against urban renewal projects such as the one that took place in the West End. Authors such as Herbert Gans did their part to speak out about the injustices of urban renewal, authoring The Urban Villagers in 1962. This work highlighted the vibrant Italian-American community in the West End and criticized urban renewal in the area. This book turned out to be quite influential and helped to show the perspective of the other side, those who are thrown from their neighborhoods. The West End's roots still exist today, and are not lost in the rubble left behind renewal. Those who live in the area still remember what it was like to live there, and have come together to create a museum in memory of what they all lost in the years of redevelopment. Even though the buildings are gone, the memories still exist. The impact Boston's West End had on each of the residents who lived in the area was carried with them throughout their lives, and still remains today. The impact Boston's West End had on each of the residents who lived in the area was carried with them throughout their lives, and still remains today through the scars created, but will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching.
Credits: Owen Cates, narrator and writer. Charles Proels, narrator and writer. Ethan Young, writer and video editor. Works cited: